Hey, this is Daniel Vitalis from SirThrival.com, and you're listening to Justin and Kate on Extreme Health Radio. And I'm just here to remind you to rewild yourself.
Welcome to Extreme Health Radio. Extreme Health Radio.
Where natural solutions to almost every health condition are out there. Join us on our journey to find them.
Now here are your hosts,
Broadcasting from sunny Southern California around the world,
Justin and Kate Stellman.
Well, I know I threaten this every time, but that intro just sounds just way too extravagant for us, doesn't it?
We might need to work on that.
I think we're going to need to work on that intro.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a bit explosive.
It is, for us, for our style.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Justin, and that's my wife,
Kate. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining.
And we are broadcasting worldwide from Southern California. Last I checked, 153 countries.
Yes, we have.
That is pretty
and growing.
Amazing.
I know. It's great.
We are so blessed. And we're broadcasting from Southern California, and it's a beautiful day here. It's about, feels like it's, 70 already?
Mm-hmm. It's going to be about 80, I think, today.
Is that right? Gosh, for Friday, November 8th, 2013, that's not too shabby.
You think?
A lot of the country's in snow right now. So if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, we'd love to have you join our community. We post all of our shows, our archived shows, upcoming schedules, things like that on Facebook. So if you want to go to extremehealthradio.com/Facebook, you can click the like button and keep up to date with all of our shows, broadcasting 4 days a week. So you want to keep up to date with what we're doing. And this is episode number 174. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/174, you'll be able to check out all the links that Dr. Cruz mentions. We have a great show with Dr. Cruz today. Dr. Jack Cruz, will be introducing him in just a second. And if you'd like to be on the show, we are now broadcasting live. Crazy, huh?
Just this week.
Yeah, we are broadcasting live. So if you want to go to extremehealthradio.com/live, you could check out the live show. We have a chat room there. You can ask questions, all that good stuff. And with the holiday season coming up, if you would like to support our work, and I know many of you purchase on Amazon, we would be very, very grateful if you would go through our link, and we would get a little commission that would help keep everything free, because all of our shows are free for you guys. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/Amazon, you can support us that way, and we're so grateful for people who've been doing that.
Thank you, everyone. It keeps the lights on and keeps everything running over here, and we get great guests on, so thank you.
Great guests like Dr. Jack Cruz. So this is going to be fun today. Looking at our upcoming show schedule, if you're interested, we have Emile de Toffol. I don't know how to say his last name, but we'll work on that. He's from Less EMF, and he'll be talking about how to protect ourselves from cell phones, from wireless technology, and all this kind of...
Which is a big reoccurring theme for all of us. So having him on is going to be a great show. Yes,
that'll be a good show. And then we have Daniel Vitalis. Mm-hmm. He'll be talking about hormone health. Mm-hmm. Hormones are always good.
We all have them.
We all have them. And then we have Dr. Morton Walker, and he'll be talking about cancer and how to heal cancer naturally. But today, I'm really excited about having Dr. Jack Cruz on. He's really a fascinating guy, and I've heard many of his interviews on the internet and on different places, YouTube, and you know how things spread around online
these days.
And he's just really a fascinating guy. His website is jackcruse.com, JACKKRUSE.com, and he's a respected neurosurgeon and CEO of Optimized Life, which is a health and wellness company dedicated to helping patients avoid the healthcare burdens we typically undergo as we age. And he's a member of the American Association of Neurological Surgeons, the Congress of Neurological Surgeons, and Age Management Medicine Group. Wow, it's quite a resume, Doctor. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, wow. So how did you get started getting into the paleo lifestyle, and how did you get started doing this whole thing?
Well, I started from failure, and probably 10 years ago, after I had finished my residency, I was living the good life and got really heavy, and I was given a spine meeting down in Birmingham, Alabama, and I just stood up to give the talk, and I tore my knee meniscus. Didn't realize it at that time, but I found out about it 5 or 6 days later. And the whole process started there. One of the surgeon's wives happened to work for a pharmaceutical company, and she told me, she goes, I think I know why this happened to you. And she sent me 6 papers and a book to read. And that kind of set me on the journey of basically going to the medical school library in Nashville at Vanderbilt and spending 18 months researching all the leads that she had given me. Mm-hmm. And basically what I found was that my number one problem was that I was living a biologic mismatched life. In other words, I was uncoupling my biology from circadian biology, and it was causing me to have problems with my hormones. It was causing me to have problems with decision-making. So then I decided, well, if that's in fact the case, I need to figure out how to fix this. Mm-hmm. I went the conventional route, all the stuff that I learned about in medical school, eat less, exercise more. That didn't work.
Right.
In fact, I gained weight. And I even had some of my best friends who were primary care doctors, who were my referral docs, try to help me, and that was an epic fail. So I took, things into my own hands, and over that 18-month period of time, I started to realize that physics actually dictates biology and not the other way around. And it was very counterintuitive when I figured it out. But I realized that probably about 18 months in, that if I could do things to reset the circadian cycling in my own brain, then I felt that I could reset, some of the epigenetic switches in my DNA to cause me to lose weight. So I believe it was 2006 or 2007. I can't remember which one. Uh-huh. It was a day before Thanksgiving. I had gone out to Whole Foods and spent a ridiculous amount of money because we were having all of our friends over.
Right.
And I told everybody this would be the Last Supper. And I stood up, after Thanksgiving, or I should say right before Thanksgiving dinner, and told my whole family that in a year I would be in a Speedo. And everybody laughed because at the time I was 357 pounds.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
6'2". And the only person that didn't laugh was my wife, because she had seen for literally 18 to 24 months what I was doing in my man cave that was loaded with, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you this, I had probably a Ryder truck, 16-foot, 18-foot truck filled with books and papers.
Really? So
that's how much stuff that I was going through, and it was a real pain in the ass to throw all that stuff out.
I'm sure. So you were
when I was done with it. But, basically what I came up with at that time was 2 prescriptions. Uh-huh. The Leptin Prescription was the first one, and then I came up with the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol. And these were the 2 basic prescriptions that I used to, fix me. And in 3 months, I lost 77 pounds. And 11 months, I lost 133. Right now, I've been probably right between 200 and 215 pounds for almost 8 to 10 years. And once it worked on me, at the time my son was going to private school, and he was a big kid. He was 6'3", and he was 257 pounds at 15 and a half years old. Well, he came home from school when we were on a family vacation at Disney World, and he said, "Dad, don't give me the brain surgery spiel." He goes, "Just tell me what to do." And that's actually the first time I actually told anybody what the Leptin Prescription really was and what cold thermogenesis was. Wow. And he said, "Well, how much weight could I lose, Dad, before I go back to school in 6 weeks?" And he wound up losing 57 pounds in 6 weeks.
Oh,
and my nephew, who happened to be sitting there with him, who decided not to go on the rides with the family to listen, he was 21 years old at the time, and he was kind of unemployed, didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. And his first year, he lost over 100 pounds, but he lost a total of 100 and I think it was 110 pounds. He's now in the Navy in a Navy SEAL program. I think he's right now in a Trident submarine somewhere in Hong Kong.
Oh, my gosh.
But he also did it in 1 year's time. And, of course, when I went back to the clinic, people started seeing me shrink. And, of course, everybody asked me, "Did you have surgery? What did you do?"
Right.
All the doctors were asking me, and I said, "Look, if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. So let's just leave it at that." And, I wasn't really confident in telling people kind of what I was doing. And several of my patients really were very, very interested. And they said, "Look, just write down what I need to do." So I did. And they all started
And so now, does the Leptin protocol, I think I heard you mention on other shows that it didn't even include any exercise, did it, for the first year, for 6 months?
Remember what I said in the beginning when we started talking, that the conventional wisdom is that that you need to eat less and exercise more.
Right.
The Leptin prescription is exactly the opposite. You actually eat more and you exercise less.
Oh my gosh.
And that's why it sounds very counterintuitive. And the reason why it's counterintuitive, and this is really a key point, it's not based on biology, it's based on physics. Mm-hmm. And anybody who knows anything about quantum physics knows that there's a lot of counterintuitive points in quantum physics that don't, on the surface, seem to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And without hurting anybody's head, just let's say that the 6 steps that are in the Leptin prescription are all tied to some of those quirky little features that are present in quantum physics. Now, if people want to learn about all that, trust me, I can split their head open on my blog, as many people have known, because there's a lot of, I think when people do this, they want to know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty interesting stuff, because I figured this out, for obesity, but it turns out that it actually works for lots of other diseases, like autoimmune diseases, autism, and things like that. You just have to understand kind of how to apply the issue and understand what the big part of the prescription is for the disease that you're dealing with.
So it's called the Leptin protocol. And for our listeners, talk a little bit about what exactly leptin is.
Well, leptin's a hormone that actually it acts in the hypothalamus, but how we get it, interestingly enough, comes from fat cells. But children are not born with leptin. They actually are designed to get it from their mother when they breastfeed. So if you don't breastfeed, you never get it. And the best way to describe leptin, to make it really simple, think about leptin as the software program for the hardware in your brain. And where that leptin receptor is in a place of the brain called the hypothalamus, which basically controls all of your autonomic functions in your body, which, feeding and appetite happen to be one. Well, leptin goes and acts there, and the message that it gives the brain, it turns the leptin receptor into an energy balance accountant. In other words, it accounts for electrons, photons, and protons from the sun. What may blow people's minds is that most people think about food as food.
Uh-huh.
I don't. I think of food in terms of the photoelectric effect, because every bit of food on this planet grows with some tie to the sun. And that's basically how the whole protocol works. And if the leptin receptor does not work because there's inflammation in the body, then it's just like having a car with a gas gauge where you can't tell whether your tank is full or empty, so you have no idea when you need to refuel or not. That's the best way to describe what leptin resistance really is. There's many different ways to become leptin resistant, but that gives you the general gist.
Okay, so generally it's tied more towards inflammation than anything else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to remember, anytime you have a circadian mismatch for any reason at all, the bottom line in biology is cytokines. And cytokines are inflammatory chemicals that, start in our plasma, but they go everywhere. They're in your CSF, they're in your brain, they're in the fluid that floats around your spinal cord and your nerves. And that has huge implications in terms of actually how your brain will work, because what it does, it changes the software integration into the hardware. Most people understand software and hardware. It's hard to get people to understand these days, because my profession, keeps telling everybody everything's genetic. Well, I will tell you nothing's genetic. Everything's epigenetic. And when you understand the difference, is genetic is just the hardware you come with. But how we live our life is determined by our epigenetics. That means our conditions of existence, how they are right now, and why that's good news for us, all of us, is it also means that we can change our conditions of existence if we're willing to do things differently than what we've done before.
So epigenetic,
that's kind of what I did with the leptin prescription. I changed the structure of my matter by changing thoughts in my head. And people find that kind of hard to believe, but that's actually the physics behind it.
Wow. So epigenetics is what actually turns on and off the genes. Maybe we do have genes for certain things, but it's epigenetics that turns them on and off? Is that how it works?
Well, I can give you a really easy way to understand it. Most people know that DNA codes for protein, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the DNA code is pretty consistent all the way across, different, animal kingdoms and clades. For example, our nearest ancestors, the chimps or the monkeys, they're 99.9% like us, but anybody who's got two eyeballs in their head can see that a monkey and a chimp and a human are radically different.
Right.
The interesting thing is that what separates us both is the non-coding part of our DNA. And the non-coding part of our DNA is where the epigenetic software program exists. So what do proteins do in the body? They form the backbone of what I would say the structure of, say, the building that the animal will become, but the instructions to tell you how to use that protein is what differs. And the mechanism and how that happens, most people know it's tied to two major platforms. One is called histone deacetylation. The other one's called DNA methylation.
Uh-huh.
But how that works, in other words, how you play that guitar, is all done on quantum mechanics principles. And that's where it gets really difficult. That's when I start talking about non-native EMF and EMF factors, because that's a big deal on my blog. But I'm getting people to understand how these things interact and cause different problems, for us as we live our conditions of existence. Because how you guys live in California is radically different than, say, how I'm going to live down here on the Gulf Coast. And people need to understand that has a huge implication of how your DNA is going to be expressed and how my DNA is going to be expressed.
Interesting. Wow. What did you mean a second ago when you said circadian mismatch?
Well, I'll give you a perfect example because we're all living in one right now. It's called daylight savings time. Okay, that's probably the most common one that most people know. There's other ones, but I guess the other common mismatch, you guys said you're in Southern California. I would tell you if you go in Beverly Hills at 9 o'clock at night, it's not dark. It's light, and it's loaded with blue light. Well, blue light happens to be the part of the EMF spectrum that turns off melatonin in your brain. Well, if you turn off melatonin in your brain, guess what? You can't sleep. If you can't sleep, you can't lose weight. That's an example of having a circadian mismatch.
Have you heard much about that program called Flux that people use? We use it, that turns off the blue light on your computers and things?
Yeah, it doesn't do a good enough job. I have it on all my stuff, but you need to do more. And, I've told all the people on my site the best way to handle blue light is actually to have either blue blocking glasses or actually use amber bulbs in your house at nighttime, because you really need to cut all blue light exposure. And, I always like to tell people, think about the Pink Floyd album back from, the late 60s and early 70s when you saw the light go through the prism and it breaks light up into, 5-6 different spectral patterns. Sunlight only has 1/6 blue light. Modern technology, especially where you guys live, it's 100% blue light coming from computers, LED TVs, iPhones, you name it. I mean, it's everywhere. And, now cities, especially like Los Angeles, are talking about moving from the bulbs that they have in the street to LED bulbs. That's not going to be good news for people who live in major cities. And people don't understand that this stuff happens because they don't appreciate, the details that are tied to this electromagnetic spectrum. And I try to point out to people all the time that the sun, our visible light, is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It happens to be the part of the spectrum that we operate optimally in. The problem is, these days, we don't live in that spectrum anymore.
Yeah, all day long we're shielded from the sun, and then at night we're in front of TV or TV screens and
right. And that's when you ask me, well, give me an example of a circadian mismatch. It's almost, I would flip the question around and say, why don't you two tell me when you actually live a normal life? Because you don't.
I know, right?
Oh gosh.
And that's the truth. I mean, it really is the truth. And when people start to get this realization, they start to realize why we're seeing autoimmunity, why we're seeing obesity, why we're seeing autism, because these things affect different aspects of our DNA. To make this even maybe more germane to what we're talking about, because I know we started talking about obesity, I want everybody to think about RNA and DNA is kind of like when you open up a piano and you see all the strings there. Well, the electromagnetic spectrum plays different strings in that piano case. So if it only plays, say, the lower end, you may wind up with this disease. If it plays the middle range, you wind up with that disease. If it plays the strings on the opposite end, you will wind up with this disease. The key factor is knowing what the normal spectrum is and what the non-native spectrum does and how it alters the expression of the music that comes from that piano. That's really where Neolithic disease generation comes from.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard you mention before Steve Jobs and his Apple iPad and all this blue light and things. And
well, look how he died. It's a perfect example. 56 years old of pancreatic cancer. No surprise to me. And another guy out your way that's, to me, even a better poster child for the blue light issue, especially now that all the data is public, is Michael Jackson. People realize Michael Jackson was the most talented person in entertainment from the age of 2 to 25.
Uh-huh.
He fell apart from 25 to 50. Why is that? Well, remember, children don't have myelinated brains. That makes them more sensitive to electromagnetic signals.
Oh.
What did Michael Jackson have on his head from the time he was 2 to 25? Constantly.
Oh, gosh.
Electrified music. What did they say in his recent, trial, the civil lawsuit? They said he couldn't even remember the words to his songs and he couldn't sleep. Everybody wanted to pound the guy in the ground, saying that, what he did was crazy. He asked the doctor to give him anesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
I see a different story there. I see a story that people need to really ask. Why couldn't he sleep? And guess what? That's a story of EMF. And that's what people need to realize. When you constantly play non-native EMF to a brain, you're not going to sleep. And if you don't sleep, everything goes wrong. And think about all the crazy things that happened to Michael Jackson in the last 25 years. He got vitiligo. He also ate a bad diet. He continued to make music. He also jet-setted all over the world. He created more circadian mismatches than just about anybody can imagine. And ironically, he was correct in saying that he did need general anesthetics to go to sleep because his brain was so fried, he likely had no melatonin left in order to run sleep. And that's the irony of the story.
Yeah.
That definitely paints a whole different
interesting
picture.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We got to take a little break here, but I want to get back to the leptin protocol, but I want to also ask you, doctor, after the break about, ways that you protect yourself from EMF, because this is a huge issue. So we'll talk about that after the break. We're with Dr. Jack Cruz, fascinating guy. I highly recommend checking out his website. He's got a bunch of webinars on there we'll be talking about later, and all kinds of great stuff on jackcruz.com. And to be honest, I don't know where he has time to do all this. He's a neurosurgeon.
Right.
So it's a really, really great site. So check that out, and we'll be right back after this break. I have been a huge fan of rebounding for many, many years. And if you want to get in great cardiovascular shape, tone your legs, back, and butt, and stomach, as well as cleanse your lymphatic system from toxins and chemicals, you just have to start rebounding. It's imperative. And not only will it create endorphins that quickly become addictive to you, but it's very low impact as well. It helps to prevent sicknesses and diseases, as well as increase bone density, and it flushes toxins from your lymphatic system. It's amazing. And not only that, but it's a ton of fun also. I do it every single day for about 15 minutes. And we found the best rebounder on the market today in the world, bar none. It's called the Bellicon Rebounder. It's the Rolls Royce of rebounders, in my opinion. And let's listen to some of what our guests have had to say about rebounding. Robert von Sarbacher is a health researcher and creator of the Mini Beat Protocol. And Robert, what's your favorite exercise?
In general, probably one of the number one anti-aging exercises on the planet is rebounding. So 15 minutes a day is good for that. You can find people who have had thermography scans on cancers, giant tumors, and when they're doing a rebounder, it would start spewing out and shrinking right in front of your eyes, the tumor would, as they're on the rebounder. So it's really good for that sort of thing. It's also very good for exercising internal organs. It's the only internal organ exerciser that I know of known to man.
Dr. Lindsay Duncan is the CEO and founder of Genesis Today. And what's the best way that you think of to stimulate the lymphatic system of the body?
Rebounding is incredible because it's good for the lymphatic system, and there's more lymph fluid in the body than there is blood. And the quickest way and the most effective way to get the lymphatic system flowing is through rebounding itself.
Yeah, because the lymphatic system can't really detox itself, can it? I think
the heart, we have the heart, thank you, for pumping blood. And we don't have a heart to pump lymphatic fluid. The only thing that really can pump lymphatic fluid is cardiovascular exercise utilizing the thighs, the thigh muscles. And that's why rebounding and getting a burn in that thigh muscle is so important for the flow and the stimulation of the lymphatic fluid.
Wow, and they even put cancer patients on rebounding, don't they?
Nutritionists do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but not a conventional doctor. But yeah, I've been learning about rebounding lately. It's quite an amazing thing.
Yeah, rebounding's amazing.
Health researcher and author of Cancer Step Outside the Box, Ty Bollinger. What do you do in your life to prevent cancer?
What do you do to treat cancer? What do you do to prevent it? Rebounding is something that I try to do on a daily basis. A little mini trampoline for those people that aren't familiar with the term rebounding, but it's basically just jumping up and down on that little mini tramp. What that does is it stimulates the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is one of our primary detoxification systems in our body, and most folks don't stimulate their lymph flow, and so the toxicity in their body builds up because their lymph is not stimulated, and the up-down motion on a rebounder stimulates the lymph flow better than just about any other exercise. So I do that almost on a daily, probably 5 days a week, I would say I average doing that.
And finally, author and speaker and creator of the Longevity Now program, David Wolf. Do you think the Bellicon is the best rebounder on the market today?
Absolutely. I was just with the crew in Europe that does the Bellicon rebounder, which is an incredible rebounder. My God, what a machine. And it doesn't use metal springs. It uses like flexi ropes. So it's very soft and fun, and it's just great to play with.
Well, there you have it. The up and down G-force actually stimulates every single cell in your body. It's incredible. And as someone who works out in the gym a lot and does Qigong, I think that the best physical aerobic exercise, in my opinion, is rebounding. It's just absolutely incredible for the human body. And the Bellicon is silent, and it comes with a warranty, and you can get them in several different sizes and colors, and some of them have bars that you can hold on to in case you're worried about balance. It's a well worth it investment in your health and in your future. So check them out in our store if you'd like, or you can check out the videos on extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. Again, that's extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. That's B as in boy, ELLICON.
100% listener supported. Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Don't forget to join our thriving community for health tips, inspiration, and show updates at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook.
All right, we are having a really fascinating conversation here with Dr. Jack Cruz, and don't forget to check out his website too. He's one of the guys that I follow, Jack Cruse, KRUSE.com, and he's always writing really fascinating things, and I find it to be very interesting because he is a neurosurgeon, and he's a man of authority, and so when he writes these big long blog posts, it's really just fascinating information, always coming at things from a unique angle too. So that's at jackcruse.com. And Dr. Cruz, before the break, we were talking a little bit about Michael Jackson and this EMF and this blue light. Do you have a cell phone? Do you have these things? And if you do, how do you protect yourself against that kind of stuff?
Well, my biggest risk is even worse than a cell phone and a laptop. I happen to be a surgeon, and if you know anything about a hospital and an operating room, that means I'm constantly in blue light, and I'm always around ionizing radiation. That part of the electromagnetic spectrum is much more powerful than your iPhone and your laptop. So my risks are off the chain.
Really?
So that means I have to do some extraordinary things to offset my risk. But that doesn't mean, that, regular people who just have, technology don't have to worry. There's many things that I do, but I would tell you, I could probably sit and talk to you for about 5 hours about mitigating EMF in your life. But I wrote a blog post on March 15th, 2013. It's called the EMF Prescription.
Okay.
And I give people the top 10 EMF FAQs, to go look. I would strongly recommend people look at that. But the single most important thing for people to realize is they have to drink non-fluoridated water. That's the best way for you to mitigate the risk. I would tell you the second best way is actually to do some of the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol. And the reason why cold is a big issue, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people know, but it goes to the work of a pretty famous surgeon in and of himself named Robert O. Becker. He found that human beings, monkeys, just about every life form out there uses semiconduction in their body as a physiologic response. His work was based in bone, but there's something called the Hall effect. Just remember that in your memory banks, but I'll give you the perfect example that everybody listening to this knows is an absolute fact. You take your iPhone out and throw it on the hood of your car, especially if you're living in Southern California at 80 degrees today, you'll get a temperature warning, and the phone won't work, right? Take the phone and throw it right in the freezer and watch what happens. Magically, it works beautifully because all things that semiconduct work better in cold. Why is that? The Hall effect increases the current of flow. When you begin to understand the same quantum physics that works in your phone and your laptop also works in you, you'll start to understand why cold is really important, especially if you happen to live a life like I do. And it's really important. And I would tell anybody my two best recommendations for EMF mitigation, instead of just listening to me, is go read Becker's book called The Body Electric. I think it's from 1989, but this is the best one. The best one is Dr. Marino, Andrew Marino, who is Becker's research assistant. He's also a physicist. He wrote a book called Going Somewhere. And if you want to know everything there is to know about EMF, about the testimony that these guys gave to the military, to the federal government, and also when they were on 60 Minutes program, after Becker and Marino spoke up, they had their funding from the NIH pulled.
Really?
And just so you guys know, Becker was nominated twice for a Nobel Prize. And the reason why, in his day, no one really knew about this stuff is this was happening in the mid-'70s. The only EMF emitting devices then were microwave ovens. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the use that we have now. And I can promise you, when you read Marino's book, you will absolutely have to pick your jaw off the ground when you start to realize how much research has already been done, but it's been buried by special interest for a damn good reason. But this book is a treatise on EMF, and I've turned all the members on my site onto the book. I've read it 5 times, and I'm not kidding you. Every time I read it, it's just mind-boggling.
We just had a guy on our show, and he was talking about how cell phones, the radiation coming off from them, and what they do to your brain. They break down the blood-brain barrier, and which allows toxins to get into your brain and things.
Well, that work is done by Alan Fry. You guys can write that name down. He's one of the people that, believe it or not, worked with Becker and worked in the military back in the 70s. And he's the one that showed that when you use low-frequency electromagnetic radiation, it opens the blood-brain barrier. And how they did it was with a dye called methylene blue. And they found that the methylene blue went right through into the brain and turned the surface of the brain blue. And this worked in monkeys, it worked in lower mammals, and it also happens in humans. And, the data gets worse because just in the last year, there's now researchers at the University of Pennsylvania that have showed not only does it open the blood-brain barrier, but it does something even more detrimental. It actually upregulates carbohydrate metabolism, and this is part of the reason why we're starting to see more brain tumors because of something called the Warburg effect. Anytime you change, remember we talked earlier about how EMF plays different piano strings on the piano. Well, when you use non-native EMF, you stop being able to use your fat-burning pathways, and you have to use your carbohydrate-burning pathways because that's the way it works, from a quantum mechanical perspective. Well, the problem is biology is not designed to work like that. And when you force it to have to live in that pathway, anytime you eat a carbohydrate diet 24/7, guess what happens? You make cytokines in the brain. And those cytokines are called IL-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and NF-kappa beta. Not important that anybody remembers that, but in case anybody wants to fact-check all this, you'll find all this stuff has been done and researched extensively by guys like Fry and Becker. And this is the reason why people get sick. So the more you use this stuff, the more you have to do to mitigate your risks.
Interesting.
And cold thermogenesis happens to be one of the ideal things to use. The problem is most people don't use it enough.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
What looks like?
To actually use that protocol?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I've got the protocol written out, so no one needs to, write all this down. I would tell you, I wrote it, I think, in February of 2012 on the blog, and it's called the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol, and it's only 6 steps.
Okay.
Basically, what you do, it takes humans about 2 weeks to cold adapt. Doesn't matter where you live, and you can do it in your bathroom at home. Easiest thing to do is you start dunking your face in, and the reason why you want to dunk your face in the ice-cold water first before you do anything else is mammals have something called a mammalian dive reflex, and it ties into neurosurgery, of course, and quantum mechanics. And there's a cranial nerve called the trigeminal nerve that innervates the face. That's the fastest pathway back into the brain to give the brain the information that the environment has radically changed.
Okay.
And that's the reason why you want to use the face first. There's a whole, the protocol really goes in depth, but that's really the first step.
Okay.
The second thing I tell people to do is you may want to consider go out and buy a compression shirt, because a compression shirt squeezes down all the surface blood vessels so that you can't have good energy transfer, so it allows you to cold adapt even faster.
And
so it's really easy to use.
What is that kind of a shirt? Is that something you wear while you're in the bathtub?
Well, you can wear it. I'll be honest with you. Here I am on the Gulf today, and it's a really nice day here. I've got a compression shirt on because I happen to was in surgery yesterday, and I'm doing my mitigation of EMF today.
Oh, wow.
So I can tell you, whatever I do the day before, I change my behavior the next day. So today is going to be a big CT day for me. So as soon as I got up, I actually was in the cold tank this morning at my house, but I actually am wearing, when I came into the hospital before talking to you guys and making rounds, I have actually compression shirt on right now, because when I get in my car, I turn the AC all the way up until I'm freezing, because I want to start using this as much as I possibly can to offset, the losses that I had yesterday in surgery.
What is cold doing on a subatomic level, do you think, inside the body? What's it doing?
That's a great question, and it's very simple to understand. I already gave you part of it. There's two main things that it does from a physics perspective. The first one, it increases Hall current, which is the semiconductor current. So anytime you have more juice going through your body, more energy is good. The second part is probably the most important part, though, that not too many people understand. And physicists use a word for this called entropy. Entropy is a synonym for inflammation, chaos, molecular crowding. So cold also decreases chaos. So when you realize that, remember we talked earlier about how EMF causes chaos in the brain by raising those 3 chemicals. Well, cold reduces that. And the way this works ties back to Einstein's, miracle year in 1905. His 4th paper was on Brownian motion. And what Brownian motion is these small little movements of atoms. When temperature goes up, meaning when you're infected or you have cytokines are elevated, those particles spin faster, so they move more. When the temperature goes down, they move less. So anytime things move less, that means that biology can be more certain. There won't be a mismatch in terms of time. And that's actually how cold works. Those are the 2 main principles on how CT works.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess there's a reason why space is so cold, it mitigates the chaos, I guess.
Well, space is a different animal altogether, because remember, the 3 things that control all life on our planet are the photoelectric effect, the magnetic field, and water chemistry. In space, there's no water, and there's no magnetic field. There is the photoelectric effect, but that's it. But you need to have all three acting in unison together in order for life to flourish. And the proof of that, very bold statement I just made is any one of us can go outside, look up, and see our nearest neighbor, which is Mars. Mars has the photoelectric effect. Mars has water, but Mars doesn't have a magnetic field. Mars is a dead red planet. And you need to realize that the details, when it comes to physics, matter, especially for life. And that's, the message that I'm trying to get out to people, that, it's easy to tell you about the Leptin Prescription, about cold thermogenesis, about, the Epcot treatment protocol, why I eat the diet that I do, but it all filters back to those three basic fundamental laws of nature and life: photoelectric effect, the magnetic field, and water chemistry. And I told you guys before, when we talked about EMF, that drinking non-fluoridated water is one of the most important things to do, because what does non-native EMF do? It dehydrates us. And that is, and anybody knows this implicitly, because, I'm sure you guys have thrown a piece of steak into the microwave, and if you don't put a piece of wet paper towel on it, what happens to it? It turns to a piece of shoe leather.
Right, dries right out.
Right.
Well, guess what? If you live in Southern California and you're on the 50th floor of, an apartment complex where EMF, remember, the higher you go off the planet, the worse the EMF gets, you're doing the same thing to your pancreas, to your brain, to your heart, to your muscles. And you don't realize it. That's the reason why, business travelers who fly all over the place and businessmen get strokes and they get pulmonary embolus. These are the reasons why it happens. Because you're decreasing, you're increasing entropy because you're increasing cytokines, and you're causing these problems to be much more likely.
Wow.
This is just lifestyle stuff that people don't even think about. We're all living our lives, and it's a great wake-up call. I think people need to hear this around the world.
That's part of the reason why, I got into it. I think the more people get into it, the more they understand that the details really do matter.
Yeah, hugely.
Wow, this is a good time to take a break. Hold right there, everybody. We're going to be right back with Dr. Jack Cruz, and I've got a lot more questions for him about cold thermogenesis. This is really fascinating. So we'll be right back with Jack Cruz. His website is jackcruse, Kruse.com, and we'll be right back after this break. I have to say, I have been absolutely loving this product by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. If you want to listen to the interview we did with Tristan, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/127. And Qigong is a great way to de-stress the body. And as you know, there's a huge component to disease caused by stress. And stress is a huge factor in how we live our lives and the amount of energy we have and the amount of vitality we have. And so, Dr. Shade, what do you think about Qigong?
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity. And I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology, because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
And what about you, Kit Campbell? What do you think about Qigong? Do you like it as well?
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body, and just fantastic.
If you're interested in picking up this Qigong course by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar, go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. That's QIGONG. And you can learn more about it. There's a great video on that page, and you can learn more about it on that page. And I highly, highly recommend this product. I love it myself. So go ahead and check that out. extremehealthradio.com/Qigong.
free shows all the time on Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Join our community today. Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life at extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
So, Kate, you and I were talking during the break. That sounds pretty fascinating, doesn't it?
I'm going to be talking all day about this, on and off.
Cold thermogenesis.
The more I learn about it, it is not for the weak, is it?
Not for the weak. So, Dr. Cruz, we were just talking, Kate and I, during the break about how some of the mental approaches that people have to have in order to do this kind of thing, because I think the cold thermogenesis, it involves sitting in a bathtub full of ice. Is that kind of one of the main things that goes on with that?
Well, that would happen after you adapt to the facial change and also using the compression shirt. But usually you can go to step 3. You can try showers, or you can actually do the water ice immersion.
Okay.
I tell most people that I think the showers are way too hard to do. I mean, I'm an expert at doing this, and the thing that people need to realize so that they understand, the temperature that you're looking to get your skin to is not, sub-freezing. You're only looking to get to 50 to 55 degrees. So you two especially are very lucky because you happen to have the best bathtub called the Pacific Ocean next to you. That's right. Constantly at 50 degrees. And you never thought about that, did you?
That's correct.
We all thought those people polar bearing on New Year's Day were idiots.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually
brilliant.
Actually not.
They're brilliant.
Yeah. It's a lot harder to do when you live in different, parts. But I would also tell you there's people on my forum that live up in New York City that actually go out off of Long Island Sound in January and do it. They've posted pictures. There's guys off of the coast of Cape Hatteras that have done it. And you can build something in your own house. You can do it in your own bathtub. You can build a swimming pool with a cold deck on it. There's many different ways to do this. But again, just so people understand, you're not trying to create hypothermia here. You're just trying to give your peripheral cold receptors the sensation that your skin is between 50 and 55 degrees. That's all it takes.
Right, okay. I thought it was a lot colder. So how long would someone want to, if they did a bathtub situation?
45 minutes. 45 minutes. That's why I tell you, read the blog post called the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol. I pulled it up while we've been talking. I wrote it on February 11, 2012.
Okay.
And the details are all there. It actually goes into everything in excruciating details, and it tells you about the 50 to 55 degrees. It also tells you about how to use the compression shirt, why you should use water versus ice, because water transmits heat transfers much better. The best way to do it is with metal, but I don't recommend anybody do that because metal, you can actually really hurt yourself. And believe it or not, plastic surgeons are now using cold metal. It's called cool sculpting to melt fat away off women's behinds and bellies.
Oh my gosh.
So this is not some crazy doctor on the internet that's come up with this. This actually is now being used for medical purposes other than what we're talking about. The key factor is people don't understand how to use this to help different disease patterns they have. I mean, I used it initially to reverse my obesity, but does this work for people with Hashimoto's, for kids with autism? I would tell you just come on my site and ask the members on my site. All the different people have used this for different reasons. You'd be shocked at how well it works because remember, every disease that we've talked about at its underpinning has inflammatory cytokines behind it, and that's the key factor. That's the reason why cold is not hormetic. It's actually a primordial factor that we all evolved with, but we've gotten so far away from it. It's an issue,
Do you think it's healthier for people to live in colder environments?
Well, that's an interesting concept. I would say in today's world, yes, but when we first evolved, remember, we evolved around the East African Rift, around 3 tectonic plates, but we evolved near the ocean. And the ocean there is just like it is in California. And we evolved eating basically an epipaleo diet, which is a seafood-laden diet. That's how we formed a human brain. we don't do that anymore, and if you really look at, the out of Africa hypothesis in terms of how we evolved, we got out of Africa using waterways. Well, today we have people living in, Kansas, and we now have figured out how to make just about every bit of land on this planet habitable. But I would tell you, to answer your question directly, if you look at Albert Schweitzer's reports, Western A. Price's reports, and some of the Swedish explorers who went up to the Inuit at the turn of the century, there was no reported cases of cancer or heart disease in those people, back in the 1900s. It didn't start to show up until the 1940s and 50s when we started to import our culture and our societal beliefs to them. So I would tell you that, I believe cold is very healthy. If you look at Sweden as a perfect example, they have probably the longest lifespan of any country on the planet right now. And look, they're far away from the equator. They're also one of the groups of people that advocate a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet, which I think is a smart move. But that's not to say, that you could not live on a higher carbohydrate diet if you live in a strong photoelectric effect, like close to the equator. And that's the point that I'm trying to make to people. The type of diet that we need to eat is not based on our cultural beliefs or our societal beliefs. It's based on the biology and the physics of the environment we live in now. And that is the key. So what I would tell you is the best diet for us 100 years ago is not the best diet that was 70 years ago, is not the best diet that is for today. And what I advocate today may change in 20 years when we screw the environment up even more. And that's the point that I'm trying to make to people, is that what basically food is electrons and photons from the sun. How we move those photons and electrons across our inner mitochondrial membrane becomes where the rubber meets the road for our biology. And people need to get that message. If your current to flow decreases, that means entropy or chaos goes up. And it's very simple. When you understand these very simple principles, our whole goal as a species should be to increase our current of flow and decrease the amount of chaos that we have. So if you know that you live in an environment that creates chaos, then that means you need to do more. If you don't, then you don't need to do a lot of these things. You may be perfectly fine, but the truth is going to be found in your labs. And if you're the kind of person like I am, as I told you, my risks are really high, I draw my blood work every 3 months. I don't take anything for granted. Even though I think I have a pretty good handle on this stuff and I understand biology and physics well, I still do not trust, my knowledge base right now. I want to know exactly what's going on in my body. And guess what? My labs tell me what's going on right here, right now. And what happens these 3 months doesn't mean that it's what happened, 4 or 5 months ago or 5 or 6 years ago. Everything changes every single day. You can have different labs if you live in a different room of the same house in your family. That is how specific quantum mechanics is.
Do we know what's going on with the cooking of food? Does that mess up the electron and the photon transfer?
Absolutely.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the classic one. One of the number one proteins to eat when you have a high EMF life is cysteine, and cysteine is the rarest amino acid. Cysteine is predominantly found in pork, eggs, but it's found in some vegetables. So, for example, last night I told you I was operating all day. I ate a huge plate of Brussels sprouts soaked in butter with asparagus because that's loaded with cysteine. Why do you need cysteine? Cysteine helps us mitigate EMF because it is one of the key proteins in glutathione. Glutathione is the number one thing in the body that increases our redox potential. And for those non-scientists listening, very simple, it improves the voltage across your inner mitochondrial membrane. What does that mean? It means the current, the flow of those electrons from the food is protected.
It's protected. Okay, and that's what glutathione is doing.
You got it. And that's exactly what helps you stay well. And what is the ultimate reason I do all that? Because it improves energy flow in my body, and it decreases entropy. Anything that decreases entropy, as we said before, decreases inflammation. Anytime we have decreased inflammation, we do better than if we didn't do that.
Yeah, it sounds like inflammation is just really the main thing that's going on that people need to worry about, especially with their diets.
Well, I'll flip the tables on you. I disagree with you. I think the number one most important thing is not food. It's the electromagnetic environment that we live in. It's the single number one thing that has been massively altered in the last 63 years. And I would tell both of you and also your listeners, if you want an eye-opener, go to my blog and read Energy and Epigenetics 4. Just read the first 3 paragraphs. Basically what I do there is I describe to you what the Earth looked like 63 years ago, and I start from space in. Oh. You will be shocked when you see what we were like then and what we are like now. And then after you read those first couple of chapters, if you happen to go and get Andrew Marino's book that we mentioned earlier, Going Somewhere, you will begin to understand that it ain't all about food. In fact, food is about 4th or 5th on my list.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because our entire lifestyle is not anywhere near, like we've been talking about this whole show, is not anywhere near what it should be or what it was supposed to be.
Well, you guys are probably younger than me. I grew up in a time where there was no cell phones, there was no microwave ovens. I remember what it was like from the time I was 0 to 15, and no one grows up the way that I grew up. And it's ridiculous. If we could just see EMF, if we had the ability to see it with our retinas, I think we would be appalled. I mean, it's gone up. There was something that came out of NASA that you guys would be very interested in. We now have more electromagnetic radiation, non-native, in our ionosphere than is present on the surface of the sun.
Oh my God!
Just think about that. Just think about that. And then just, even if you're not a biology person or a chemistry person, or even a physics person, do you think that raise in 63 years would not have some kind of biologic effect on ourselves?
How can it not?
How could it
not? Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. The point is people don't want to face this because we all love our technology. We like the things that it allows us to do, just like we're doing now and sharing these ideas on the internet. I mean, I get it. But when people go to the doctor and they get upset because they don't know what's causing their type 2 diabetes, they don't know why their kids are getting autistic, they don't know why Alzheimer's disease is exploding in the last 100 years, this is the reason why. And it's not because, you need to eat better food. Everybody can eat better food, but you're not going to reverse these problems because food is only one part of the equation. And that's why I try to teach people slowly, piecemeal, how quantum mechanics and how quantum physics dictates how our biology is played.
Wow, interesting stuff. And on Jack Cruse's website, he's got a series of different webinars that you can check out: quantum sleep, autism, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, deconstructing the cause of neurodegenerative disease. He's got tons of breast cancer screening, EMF dive deep. And Dr. Cruz, you've also put together a little package for people if they want to learn more about the Leptin Protocol and the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol for our listeners, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. If we're also going to throw in a month free on the Silver Club membership, so that way you'll be able to ask me questions that are pretty direct on the form, and you'll actually be able to hear some of the Q&A. I just did the November webinar, which is going to be actually on the basics of the quantum cell, how a cell works from a quantum fashion. But for your guys, if you sign up, you'll get the Epcot treatment protocol, which is one of the best ways to mitigate EMF, and it actually, believe it or not, talks a lot about cysteine in there. And the other one would be the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol. As I think we talked for the whole hour. I think y'all know it's pretty important to begin to embrace the cold. And we talk about doing deep CT in there, stuff that I can't talk about on the internet, but things that I've done to really mitigate my own risk when I've been in surgery for 8 or 12 hours around X-rays.
Wow. If people are interested in those two webinars, he's giving right now to our listeners $157 off. It's normally $206, but it's going to be $49, and you just got to use this link. It's extremehealthradio.com/Jack Cruse, JACKKRUSE, and that will redirect you over there to check out those 2 webinars.
And thank you for that, Dr.
Yeah,
Cruz.
thank you for that. And just
we got to spread the news. We got to make people aware of why they're getting sick and why they're not getting the goals that they want.
Yeah.
Good food is one way, but we need to understand what we're doing to our environment is the biggest issue.
I couldn't agree more.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you, Jack, for being on. Is there anything that you're working on? I'm sure you're always working on new things. Anything you want to tell people about?
Well, I got 2 books, 2 new books coming out. I've got my book that's already out. It's called the Epi Prescription. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles or Amazon. But I'm finishing up a book on quantum mechanics and how physics dictates biology. And then I'm working on another one, which is a bunch of my quotes that get people in the right frame of mind so they're ready for transformational change.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gosh, where do you have time to do all this stuff?
Well, here's the big story. When you CT a lot, my friend, and you do the things that I do, you find that you get a lot more productive because you increase the dopamine levels in your brain.
Wow. Okay, so
believe it or not, it does make a difference.
So really quickly, for those listening that want to learn more about the CT, the cold thermogenesis, how often do you do it?
Well, this time of the year, I would tell you pretty much every day.
Every day,
and,
okay.
Yeah, I do it every day. In the summertime, I don't do it all the time, but I do lots of other things in the summertime to mitigate risks. I'd say probably in the summer, probably 3 to 4 times a week. But in the wintertime, I'll sometimes, like this weekend, I'm off. After I finish with you guys, I got to go make rounds. But I'll be out of the hospital. But because I had a pretty busy week in surgery, I will probably spend at least 12 hours in the next 3 days doing CT.
Wow. Fascinating. Well, thank you, Jack.
Inspiring.
Dr. Cruz, for being on. I have to say, this has probably been one of the most fascinating talks we've had, and we've had a lot of people on. So thank you for your work and for spending some time with us.
Anytime. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Cruz. We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're still live, and Kate, you have to go. So
for some reason on this live, by the way, I'm locked out of my communication. I've been trying to ask people, how are those sound levels? We're still testing this out. If anybody can hear this right now, if you want to send me or Justin an email later today and let us know how this one went over, as we're still trying to get the sound figured out, we would really appreciate it, and I'll figure out how to log back in here.
Yeah.
It locked me out, so I'm not sure.
How funny.
The growing pains.
The growing pains of a live show. So stay tuned to the podcast. This is episode number extremehealthradio.com/174. And Kate and I will talk a little bit about Jack Cruz and all of that stuff. So thanks for listening. And here we are on the podcast. One of the benefits of being on or listening to the actual podcast instead of the live show.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
This live show is a whole new entity, isn't it?
It's a whole new beast in and of itself.
Beast. I like it though. Once we get it squared away, which I think it's getting a bit better.
Yeah, we finally got the sound levels so they're not blowing out your eardrums, and
which is good.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah.
So we're not sure how. I think we're going to have to save Kate. I have to figure out how we're going to do this.
Do what?
Do the end of the show.
Okay.
Because I think that we're going to have to save our little time together that we talk about the show
after the guest.
After the guest leaves and after the live show's done.
Oh, right.
So this will probably be a motivating thing for people to listen to the podcast because they're going to get this extra little bit at the end.
Right.
And that'll work, right?
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be able to, because I like to talk to the guests after off the air and connect with them and things. And
yeah, it's kind of a bummer just to have to hang up and be like, see you later.
Yeah, after we talk with them for an hour, just hang up and say goodbye. So
yeah.
But what do you think of Dr. Cruz? God, he's a crazy guy, isn't he?
What? He's a crazy guy.
No, he's amazing.
What doesn't he know?
Starting with that.
Golly.
Yeah, he's pretty interesting guy.
I felt like that was one of my very favorite interviews. I loved it, didn't you?
Yeah, he was really good. Yeah. I can't believe he lost 133 pounds in a year.
Who can say that?
Isn't that
hardly
crazy?
Anybody? I mean, that's pretty amazing. I look at his picture on his site, though. I can't imagine him ever being that big to begin with.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight to lose without even exercising.
Yeah.
I bet you he watches Celebrity Fit Club and those Biggest Loser shows and just thinks, man, these people have no idea.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean?
I know. That's why I think he really values getting the word out there. The more people, the better, because all these people just striving, and they talk to people every day that are always just doing all kinds of crazy dieting and, the exercises they do. It's like they cannot lose a pound for all that they've changed. And it's so frustrating. And I don't blame them for just feeling really stuck. And there's all these other options out there to try, whether it's,
We have some friends that we could turn on to the Leptin Protocol and the Cold Thermogenesis, don't we?
We do. We do?
Yeah.
You mean just everyone, or are you thinking of people in particular?
Just people in our lives that we know.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody would do it.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking of one person that might do it.
Really?
Yep.
Yourself?
Well, I'll try it. Yeah.
You've been talking about it for a while.
I'll try anything.
Yeah, no, that gives me the chills thinking about it. I mean, I know it works and it's fascinating, but that seems very, a little rigorous.
Yeah, probably not a good time of year to try the cold thermogenesis in winter.
Right.
But I say it's pretty cool.
I want to figure out what he's talking about with that shirt you wear.
Yes, that's very interesting because we were talking at the break that it's kind of counterintuitive to what Sid Singer says. Remember? Mm-hmm. Because he was talking about restricting blood flow. When you sit, you fold the body at the waist, and that prevents circulation from happening. And
right.
And so I would imagine that, he doesn't even like, Sid Singer doesn't even like wearing clothes to bed because of that. Wow. And even at that point, your body's flat, so your circulation should be even more enhanced just by being flat on the ground.
I don't know. There's so many different... I feel like every guest we talk to throws a new wrench in the system.
Yeah, I know, right?
Or however you want to say that. But yeah. I feel like I just take little bits of everything, and I'll try anything once and then figure out what I think works for me. Everybody's body's different. Everybody's comfort level's different. But I do think there is something throughout the ages about the whole dipping in the freezing cold water and then also, going into the hot saunas. And there's something to that for sure. Yeah. For all the people that have gone before and been healthy and didn't have a lot of problems. And
I suspect it would be good to go back and forth. That's what I want to do. Go get really, really, really cold and then jump in the sauna and then...
I think that's probably really good to shock your system that way.
It's probably pretty good.
I don't think I was led to believe that growing up. I come from a pretty cautious family that probably think that would give you a heart attack, but I probably think that's one of the best things for you.
Right. Well, if you're interested in Dr. Cruz, we're going to have him on again because he is just really, really one of the more interesting guys we've spoken to. We didn't even get to the paleo diet, really. I mean, we kind of just talked about his protocols and all the different stuff he's doing. But if you're interested in his protocol, you're going to get, he's set up a special offer for you guys as Extreme Health Radio listeners in our community here. And it's really a good deal, $49. As opposed to $206, so you're saving $157.
Wow!
And you're getting the Epcot Leptin Protocol and the Cold Thermogenesis Protocol, both as webinars. Then you also get, I'm not sure what his Silver Club monthly membership access is, but I think that would be a really, really interesting thing if this kind of touches a chord with you. You might want to be interested in those things.
That's a really gracious offer from him, I think.
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah, $49 instead of $206. That's a great deal.
It's a great deal.
So, if it's for you, check that out. You can go to it if you go to extremehealthradio.com/Jack Cruse, JACKKRUSE, and that'll redirect you over there, and you can make the purchase over there.
And if anybody does it, I'd love to get an email or pictures or anything, hear how your journey with it goes, because I'm interested in it.
Yeah, we don't get any financial benefit from that, but this is just something that we really like Jack, and he's been nice enough to put this together for people. So if you if you're interested in that, check that out and let us know what you think.
We would love it.
We would love it. So this is, what episode is this? Episode 174?
Yep.
Okay, so if you have any questions, maybe if you try it out, you could go to extremehealthradio.com/174 and let me know what your results are.
And your experience.
Yeah.
Gosh, please send us some emails and comment, because I am very curious.
Yeah, comment on that if you can. That would be really cool.
I know it seems so counterintuitive. Like, people like me have poor circulation, but maybe it's the best thing for somebody like me to try out.
Probably is.
I know. Well, this next year I have a feeling.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to hold a lot of new... I've had quite the year, which I'm sure as we finish out this year, we'll go more into detail about the things that we've done this year. But it's one more new thing to try, and I think it's exciting.
I know, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So this is episode number 174. So you can make your comments on that page and let us know if we can help you guys in any way. You can always email me, Justin at extremehealthradio.com.
Or Kate at extremehealthradio.com.
And as you know, all of our shows are 100% free. We work for free for everybody. So we want to make sure that our shows stay that way so you can pass them on to people who need them. So we graciously accept your kind donations. So if you are able to donate a couple dollars here and there, $5, $10, $15, $20, if you can, or do so on a monthly basis, that would help offset the costs of us having the monthly costs on the servers and the equipment and the phone lines and the internet connection. And so it really does it's starting to add up the cost here. So if you could help us out, that would be so great. We'd be so grateful for that.
We would.
Yeah, so if you can send us a couple dollars, that'd be really great.
Every time we get one, it just touches us because it enables us to do what we love doing. We love doing this for you guys, and we love doing it for ourselves. And just hopefully the more people that can find out about this free information, the better. So it really does keep us going, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So
yeah,
thank you for considering donating, and for those of you that do, we're really, really grateful.
Super grateful. So thanks, guys, so much. And you can always contact us if you want us to help you in any way, and we appreciate you listening. If you'd like to share this show with your friends, we will allow you to do that. Please
we'll let you.
Yeah, please do. We would love that. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even as you educate yourself in the field of live food nutrition and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers or listeners medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog and during this podcast is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any of the information on this podcast or in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for